As John Lennox has pointed out, science does not have the answer to everything. Science can tell us what, but science cannot tell us why. I believe as humanity, we've been programmed to not ask why, and to believe that all there is what we see and what we can measure. But I also believe that deep inside of us there is this nagging question that is always there. Why? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And it is not 42. And there are some people who can look at evidence for creation and cannot make the connection that that actually is evidence for creation. They say, oh, that's what you believe. That's your belief. It's not that they're not smart or they're not educated. It's just that they aren't wired in such a way to look at this and pull something from over here into that. Some of the dots that are out there flying around that support creation, and I just sitting in my sunroom writing things down, so this is all just off the top of my head. The big one for me is entropy and statistics, and I've made posts on that. The incredible organization within the complexity of life cannot just have happened. Entropy says it can't happen that way without something causing it. Statistics say it can't just happen that way. Irreducible complexity. I've talked about that too, and there's been some argument against that. When you have something like, I will use as an example, a bombardier beetle that has a lot of parts that all have to come together at the same time. They can't be built up piece by piece. A bombardier beetle would destroy itself if it were built up piece by piece. Just a simple statement on that. The symbiotic relationships, plants and animals that cannot survive without each other, that extends to ecosystems. We find that ecosystems are a balance, and everything in that balance is important. I guess at one time in Yellowstone they removed wolves. Wolves were killing off deer, and somebody thought that was bad. I'm assuming that happened because wolves were not in Yellowstone. But then the ecosystem suffered. Somebody thought maybe we need to bring wolves back, and they reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone. Suddenly birds came back. Plants flourished. What was happening is the deer were destroying plants, which were causing the birds to leave. The wolves were necessary to keep the deer population down so the rest of nature could flourish. Everything is dependent on everything else, which kind of goes against the idea of evolution. Something I've always wondered about is two genders in reproduction. If in your mind you go back to the beginning when supposedly life started and these amino acids came together, and you realize for that life to survive, it has to do two things. It has to be able to eat and grow, and it has to be able to reproduce. Now, generally in the plant and animal kingdom, we have two genders for reproduction. And why? Yes, I know there's been some explanation because that works better. It just doesn't explain why it happened. Left-handedness in biology. When amino acids form, they can form in a right and left-handed form, mirror images of each other. If allowed in a natural environment to just come together from their component parts, amino acids form both right and left-hand forms. But it's almost exclusively the left-hand form that we find in life. Why would that be? Why? And again, going back to statistics, that only the left-hand amino acid would be used in the formation of life. That statistic has been run, and it's phenomenally impossible. The Cambrian explosion. So many forms of life all complete suddenly at one time in the geologic column. Evolutionists have no answer for that. It's very easy to explain when we consider the worldwide flood of Noah. Here we compare the digital nature of life with Morse code. Morse code, the elements are dot, dash, and space. In the nucleotide bases, we have 4 amines: guanine, cytosine, adenine, and thymine. And those 4 code in various combinations for the amino acids, and there in organisms are 20 amino acids, as the Morse code dot, dash, and space code for the letters, 26 letters in English. And then those letters code for words. Well, the amino acids code for proteins, and there are many thousands of different proteins per cell. And then those proteins code for the organisms. Our genetic code is digital, and it's a phenomenal code. And the thought that that just happened is beyond what I can put in this digitally coded thing. By the way, the brain is also digital. It's more complex than just the on and off switches in a computer or even the coding in our genetic system. Even today, we do not totally understand how it works. The precision of the Earth's position just happened. We are just the right distance from the sun. Much closer by a matter of percentage points would fry us. Much farther away by a matter of percentage points would freeze us. We have the Earth's magnetic field to protect us. We have the ozone layer to protect us. Jupiter is in just the right place and is the right size to draw asteroids away from us so we are not destroyed by asteroids. The moon is just the right size and in the right position to cause the right kinds of tides. Tides that help clean the ocean, but not so large that we can't manage them. Just an amazing coincidence. First cause, the law of cause and effect. Well, that goes back to what I said in the beginning, that our belief tells us why. First cause, or root cause. I may be more sensitive to that than most because my whole career was based on my finding a root cause. When something went wrong wherever I was working, I was tasked with finding out why it went wrong. Note, first, the assumption is that there was a reason for something going wrong. Nobody just threw up their hands and said, "Oh, that's nature doing its thing." No, something went wrong. We had to find out why, what caused it, and then correct that so it would not happen again. First cause, root cause, is a real thing. If you sit back and think about it. If you think about the Big Bang, there was this, singularity or whatever it was in the beginning. And at some point, it blew up. Why? Even if you believe the Big Bang or the many versions of it, something changed. It was one way, and then it was another way. And what caused it to change? Things don't change without a cause. And that kind of just gets blown off by evolutionary humanists or humanistic evolutionists. Of all the things that the theory of evolution absolutely needs, there is one. There is one thought that the whole theory of evolution hangs on, and that is long times. that the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago. Of course, the cornerstone of the long ages that the evolutionists use is the isochron dating of rocks. Really, everything else hangs on that isochron dating. That has been critiqued by Institute for Creation Research, and there are two small books on what is referred to as the RATE Project, and you can download those books free here. I have a bit of a summary on that in this post. Another problem for evolutionists' timetable that has arisen recently is finding collagen in dinosaur bones. That is, soft tissue in bones that are supposed to be millions of years old. Not supposed to be there. Also recently, carbon-14 has been found in diamonds. This is another problem for the old ages of the evolutionists. I made a post on it, and there was a lot of pushback, as would be expected. If you take those times away, you cannot have evolution. It destroys it all. And there are a lot of things that we can measure that suggest the Earth is not millions or billions of years old, but thousands. One of them is the decay of the Earth's magnetic field. I'm not going to go into that here. I have put, I think, 2 posts on about that. Salinity of the oceans. We know, apparently, the rate at which minerals are being brought into the ocean by all the rivers that empty into the ocean. And by that rate, assuming the ocean started out as freshwater, we can calculate how old the oceans are. And using the different minerals, we come up with thousands, not millions. Population statistics, just the number of people we have on the Earth. And if you start with, let's say, 2 people, yeah, there we are again. 2 people. You got to have 2. But anywho, if you start with 2, how do we get to 8 billion or whatever we are now? How long would that take? And even taking into account tragedies, it's not millions of years. Genetic decay, I think I made a post on that too, that in every generation there are 200 mutations added to the genetic load of the human race in every generation. And based on that, the human race would just implode, would decay in upon itself in a certain amount of time. There are 2 things about that. One is the human race cannot be as old as evolutionists would say it is. Thousands, not millions. And the other thing is it goes backwards from the theory of evolution. We are getting worse. We're not getting better physically as humanity. Those are all things that suggest that evolution is not the case. And many of those things suggest that there is an intelligence, a first cause that is making things happen. Science tells us that there is an intelligence, there is a first cause. Science doesn't identify that first cause for us, but we can do that other ways.